You're listening to Clearing the Haze, episode number 21. Are we encouraging addiction? Welcome to this week's episode of Clearing the Haze. I'm your host, Chuck Marting. This week, we're talking about, are we encouraging addiction? And I have a quote from a book that I've been thinking about quite a bit when thinking about this topic and what we're going to be talking about today. And I just want to share that with you really quick. And that is, whether the sale and use of a particular drug is legal or not makes no difference when it comes to the effects on the brain, including addiction. Its legal status also has no effect on the best way to treat someone who has developed a substance use disorder to the drug. However, making a drug legal significantly increases both its availability and its social acceptability. Legality of drug also unleashes powerful commercial promotion of its use, as we can see with both alcohol and nicotine, and increasingly with marijuana. This is from the author, Dr. Robert DuPont, from the book Chemical Slavery. I had the honor of meeting Dr. DuPont and sitting next to him during lunch at the Endesa conference last year and being able to speak to him just a little bit before he went on to speak during one of the sessions there. And he was talking about this book, Chemical Slavery. If you have not heard of this book or even read it, it is well worth your time to read it, to try and understand a little bit more about addiction, the cycles that people go through, and some of the science behind it. Is a really well thought out book, has a ton of information. I can tell you, I have many pages that are dog-eared and are also highlighted with my highlighter because of paragraphs or even statements like I just shared with you. Now, you may be asking yourself, what brought about this topic? Well, I received an email from a client that initiated this topic, and I had recently reached out to them. We've done drug-free workplace drug testing for them, helped them develop their drug-free workplace policies and procedures, as well as their DOT and drug and alcohol testing policies. So when I touched bases with them, it was to see when a good time would be to take care of their first quarter non-DOT drug tests. And to be quite frank with you, I was surprised by the email I received. And I just wanted to share a little bit of that email with you real quick. And it said to me, honestly, after the last few tests and with all the issues we're having with employees trying to use fake pee and telling us that they can pass, and then later that morning they can't, we're tired of the hassle. After talking with the owner this weekend, we decided to slow down on our testing and only do testing when it is required. Wow, that was truly a gut punch. This really had me thinking, to be honest with you. I thought about all the positive impact that we've made with this employer over the last couple of years. One of the things this employer had done was to offer their DOT employees a $500 a month stipend just to remain drug-free and not smoke marijuana. In fact, the individuals who were not in this pool, they're non-DOT people, they fell under their drug-free workplace policy. They had a second chance policy in there should anybody come up positive for marijuana, or if they came to them seeking help or needing resources for addiction. So after receiving this email over the weekend, I've been thinking a lot about Dr. DuPont's book, Chemical Slavery, and I'm going to be using some of the material from it today in our podcast. And one of the paragraphs that really stood out to me about this very issue with this employer was whether the sale and use of a particular drug is legal or not makes no difference when it comes to the effects on the brain of the user. And this also includes addiction. Its legal status has no effect on the best way to treat someone who's developed a substance abuse disorder for that drug. But making a drug legal significantly increases both its availability and its social acceptability of that drug. It also unleashes some pretty powerful commercial promotion of its use. And we've seen that over and over again with both alcohol and nicotine, and now increasingly with marijuana. When you think about it, what a good job the pro-marijuana industry has done in de-villainizing marijuana from a harmful addictive substance to that not only affects the user, but also the family of the user and those close around them. They've successfully changed the image of marijuana being a powerful and useful medicine now. I mean, if you stop and you think about it, even with recreational marijuana, people are saying that they use it for medical purposes, like they use it because they can't sleep, or they need to relax, or that it helps them with any pains or aches that they may have. You'll have very few people anymore that are telling you, to be honest with you, that they are smoking it just to get high, because they still feel they need to justify their use of that substance. I think medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, and now with CBD, all have been touted as the best cure for almost every ailment you can think of or medical condition you may have. And now, most recently in the news, and what we're seeing almost on an everyday basis, employers are now being attacked and being sued for being discriminatory towards individuals who choose to use this substance. And I think that is what motivates a lot of these employers now to not even bother wanting to drug test with it, because like my client that just sent me this email, they feel like it's a bigger hassle than what they are willing to put up with. They don't feel supported. They're seeing this stuff in the news, and so they're thinking, well, why bother? Am I going to end up having more issues just because I'm wanting to have a drug-free workplace? Is it even worth my having a drug-free workplace? Or is it even worth my just not even testing for marijuana anymore unless I have, like they said, a contractor or somebody that is requiring it, and then they'll go ahead and do it. So there's a lot of confusion out there, especially if you're an employer, as to what is the best practice for you in your workplace. And I've got to tell you, we're starting to see some employers, because of this frustration, no longer pre-employment test for marijuana. They'll still test randomly, post-accident, or reasonable suspicion, but that in and of itself also causes an issue within the workplace. We just recently had 2 guys come in to do a drug test pre-employment for their employer, and it happened to be one of these employers that does not test for marijuana for pre-employment. They told them this during the interview and before they sent them in, but we still caught them with synthetic urine. And when we talked to both of these guys, and it happened at different times of the day, we asked them, didn't they tell you that they're not testing for this? Both of them told us the very same thing. They said, yeah, they did, but I didn't believe them. I thought they were setting me up. So even when they're not testing for it, people are still not trusting them that they truly aren't testing for it. It's just ironic when you think about it and you see this, and you have to experience it to just shake your head and say, I can't believe this. Even when they're telling them that they're not testing for it, they're still cheating on their tests. When we talk to these employers that are wanting to do this, a lot of times they are just focusing on the issues that they're having in hiring somebody and the frustration that they're dealing with. A lot of times, I don't think they're having other considerations that they're thinking about. One of those things is the thought about considering that most of these individuals are going to be driving company-owned vehicles, or they may be operating company equipment that's going to cause them to have a CDL or something like that because of the type of equipment that they're operating. In a recent report by AAA, they found that the percentage of drivers in the state of Washington involved in fatal car crashes tested positive for marijuana. They had doubled since the state had legalized marijuana for recreational use in 2012. According to that same study, Washington drivers were also involved in fatal car crashes from 9% in the previous 5 years to 18% after the legalization of marijuana in the first 5 years. So after legalization, the study also found that about 1 in 5 drivers involved in a fatal crash in 2017 had tested positive for marijuana. And this was pretty similar to a report that we had here in Colorado, a 2018 report that stated that marijuana-related traffic deaths involving marijuana use increased 151% following the legalization. And more than 1 in 5 traffic deaths in the state of Colorado were contributed to marijuana relation. This is mirroring this same study that AAA just finished with in the state of Washington. I think one of the big things that we need to ask ourselves as drug and alcohol testing collectors for our clients is, why is it so important that they stay the course and continue to test for marijuana and not dismiss it? I think we need to educate them more and give them more of the statistics, some of the stuff that I'm sharing with you now, and some of the studies that are being conducted, and compare that to the feel-good news that they're hearing and seeing from their employees. I mean, let's face it, a lot of our employers are frustrated. It's not as easy anymore as it once was for them to hire individuals. But does that mean we need to lower our hiring standards and allow a substance that has been proven time and time again and shown to have adverse effects be allowed in our workplaces? I feel it's our responsibility as drug and alcohol testing collectors to remind our clients of the many years prior to the legalization of marijuana, or even medical marijuana, that they were drug testing. We just didn't start drug testing for marijuana because of the legalization of it. We were testing it long before that. It was one of the first drugs that started being tested for during the drug-free workplace testing. When that initiative first started, marijuana was one of the drugs that was tested for. So it's been tested for quite a long time. But I think we need to help them understand that they didn't lower their standards then. Why are they lowering them now? Helping them to realize that there are consequences for not doing it. Just the other night, I had a call out in the middle of the night for an employer that does not pre-employment test for marijuana. And they called me out for a post-accident. When I got there, I contacted the donor and the supervisor, and one of the first questions that the donor asked me is, am I being tested for marijuana? And I stated to him that he was. And he looked at me and he said, why does it matter if I smoke marijuana now when it didn't matter when I first got hired? So the message that we're sending these guys is even confusing them. I mean, this employee was visibly upset that they were testing for marijuana now. And from what he was saying, he feels like he's being set up. And in a way, he may be right. He had gone in there knowing that they don't test for it. He says he didn't know that they weren't going to test for it for a post-accident. The employer says that they say that they are with them. Who knows? The point is, the only thing the employee remembers is that first initial time of them going in and not having to worry about it. I mean, for goodness sakes, I had an individual that came in here just a few months ago reeking of marijuana. And I looked at him and I asked him, did you smoke weed on your way over here to your test? And he said, yeah, man, I was celebrating. He said, these guys don't even test for it. It's awesome. This is the precedence that these employers are allowing themselves to be set up in. And then when something does happen and they want them tested for it, they are going to run into huge issues and problems with these employees, because even though they're telling them, even though they're saying that these employees are made aware of it, you're sending them a mixed message. And believe me, the first time that one of these guys goes to an attorney and they sue somebody, these guys are going to lose because they're not standing. How can you win as an employer when you're not even standing by your own drug-free workplace policies and procedures? So what do? Do we have an obligation as collectors to help this employer? Or do we just sit back and watch them implode? I feel as a collector that we need to show that we care about our clients and that we are willing to work with these clients to ensure that they have an effective drug-free workplace policy and a drug and alcohol testing procedure that is going to be followed. Just like the company that I shared with you at the beginning of this episode, who is allowing the employer to decide what they are and are not going to do in their own workplace? Who's making that decision for them? Right now, they're being ruled by their employees and by pressure from society. Right now, like I said earlier, the pro-marijuana groups have done a fabulous job of de-villainizing marijuana, making it seem like not a big deal. It's safer than alcohol. So what is the big deal? We've got to give these employers the support they need right now to make an informed decision. You know, one of the things that I'm going to do when I meet with this employer is I'll have the information that we've gathered over the last couple of years, because I want to paint that picture of what it looked like when they first came to us and they asked for help in developing these drug and alcohol testing procedures for their workplace. In the beginning, they were excited because they knew they were doing the right thing, even given an incentive to try and encourage their employees to be drug-free. How many employers are even doing that? But I think along the way, and you can hear it in the email that she sent and also in the statement that I had read to you from that email at the beginning, the frustration that the employers are experiencing when they go to somebody during an interview and they tell them, look, we drug test and one of the drugs we're testing for is marijuana. Are you going to be able to pass a test? And they tell them, yes, we'll be able to pass a test, only for us to discover that they're in possession of synthetic urine, or they used it during the drug test as an insurance policy to make sure that they got this job, not counting on the fact that my team has seen this so much that we can catch it almost every time. I'm not going to be arrogant enough to tell you that we're going to catch it every time, but we're dang good at what we do, and we do catch a majority of it. But right now, this employer is experiencing the pain of frustration of it seems like everybody is doing it. Guys, they've got a lot of employees, and it wasn't all of them. It's only been a handful. But it's still painful when you have this employer that is having a hard time finding people to fill these positions, and they feel like they're not going to be able to, and they can't afford to lose any more good employees, quote unquote. I plan on going over their drug-free workplace policy with them. I want to help refresh their memory as to why we sat down and developed this policy for them, why it was needed, and what good it's done since then. They've been able to give employees referrals to substance abuse places. They've been able to give other employees second chances that have worked out well for them. So what they're feeling right now is, like I've said, the frustration in individuals lying to them. Another part of that big picture that I need to paint for this employer is the liability daily that they have because of the type of work that they do. Also, that every one of their employees is driving a company vehicle or they're operating equipment that requires a CDL license. These guys need to understand that at any point, not only with marijuana, but any drug that could be impairing, it's going to affect them. And the first thing that's going to be asked is whether or not this individual's been drug tested, or at the time of the accident, we need to get this guy drug tested right now. Then is not the time to be worried if that person is drug free. What's even more scary is here in the state of Colorado, by the act and consent of driving in this state, we have what's called the applied consent law, which means that if there's serious bodily injury that's involved in that accident, then the police are going to take your blood and they're going to draw it 30 minutes apart to see if there's levels of alcohol or drugs that are going up or down in your system. And with this law, just by the act of driving in Colorado, even if you refuse to do this, they are going to tie you down and take it. And they will do that legally in this state. When they do that, if that comes up with any type of drug, whether it's the person saying it was medical marijuana or not, that is going to be seen as part of the causation of the accident. And that driver could be cited for driving under the influence of drugs. So there's bigger liability in the big picture of things. We never hope for accidents to happen, but they do. We never hope for somebody to get injured, but they do. And so these circumstances aren't going to go away, but they could be amplified if we ignore this whole process from the beginning when we do our drug testing. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish with this employer. I know that I can paint that picture for them. I can give them the facts. The rest is going to be up to them, and they're going to have to decide. Now, does that mean that I'm going to kick them to the curb, or I'm not going to check back with them? There's not a chance in heck, man. I am going to be back over there talking to them, seeing what I can do with them, because I know that right now, just that frustration, it's going to go away. And they're going to come back. They're going to want to have some drug testing done. But right now is the time for them to see that it's not just the drug testing that I'm in for, but that I'm concerned about them in their workplace. And just because they're not drug testing doesn't mean that I'm not concerned. So that's what I'm planning on doing. Now, when I find out what happens, I'll let you guys know. So that may be in a future episode. For right now, guys, this is some of the things that we're dealing with that's very real. I don't know if you're dealing with them. I'm assuming that you're going to be dealing with them the way things are going in our nation with legalization of marijuana. I mean, let's face it, we know it's going to happen. It's only a matter of time before it's going to be nationalized. It could even be reclassified. The only thing that we can hope for and that we have to push for, if that happens, is a safety carve out. We cannot allow people in safety sensitive positions to just recreationally use marijuana and hope that everything's going to work out just fine. It'll be a scary, scary world. And it's going to take something or someone being seriously hurt or some sort of a situation to occur before our nation wakes up and understands that we are moving too fast with not enough information and making assumptions on what other people are saying without any hard facts in legalizing this substance and allowing just lots of people to legally get high using this drug and act like there's nothing wrong. We have a substance abuse problem in this nation. You can ask anybody, Dr. DuPont, anybody, and they're going to tell you addiction is alive and well in the United States of America, and we're allowing it to happen, and that's a scary thing. It's even more scary when it comes to our youth. Well, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Clearing the Haze, and it's given you a different perspective and something to sit back and think about. When talking about this with your clients, just reassure them that what they're doing is the right thing. Help them understand why they're drug testing and why it's important that they have a drug-free workplace. Remember that we have the Indasa conference that's coming up March 9th through the 11th. And you can go to indasa.com and see the agenda, the classes that are being offered. Yours truly will be presenting 2 classes out there. One on the drugs that impair signs and symptoms, which is a 4-hour class. And then I'll also be teaching a class called Is It Real? Recognizing Synthetic Urine and how to detect it in your workplace or when your donors give it to you. So I'm hoping to meet you out in Jacksonville, Florida in March. If you're not attending, that's fine. Get a hold of me. I am teaching these classes online with webinars and also on site, and I'd be more than happy to be able to offer these classes to you if that is something that you're interested in. So you can contact me at helpclearthehaze@gmail.com. Again, that's helpclearthehaze@gmail.com. Guys, until next week, it's been real. Can't wait to drop another episode for you next week. But until then, remember, it's your vision, it's your dream, and it's your business. Take care.